This morning in North Carolina, wheels are spinning. Determination is winning. A passion is now a thriving business, and it shows no signs of slowing down. How? The power of a conversation, like the one Clint Spiegel had with First Horizon Bank about starting a bike wheel manufacturing facility in Asheville. Now it's not just talk, it's rubber meets road. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Clint. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
There's a fine line between genius and insanity, and we're walking it. It's the Marketing Madhouse.
I'm Moira Vetter, your host for Marketing Madhouse. And today we are talking to Carol Godfrey, my old dear friend. I shouldn't say old. My friend who's dear and I've known a long time. Is that better?
Perfect.
And we're going to be talking about the 4 Ps of marketing and probably 6, 8, 10 Ps of marketing, really, by the time we're done with it.
Sure.
But specifically, the possibilities and the priorities that you have to juggle when you're in the profession of marketing, but then also sometimes life throws you curves and you kind of lean in and go a different direction. So Carol and I work together. We've known each other 20-some years. She was SVP of Marketing and Product Development in the Energy Division at Southwire Company. But you have a very interesting story. I don't know how you got from an Auburn engineer into marketing, but why don't you tell us about that journey?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thank you. It is every day hanging with you is a good day. So thanks for being here. Moira, I started out as an engineer and got my degree in engineering. I think I just liked newness. I liked change and I liked making things different and better. And engineering rolled right into that. So did that for a good while, worked in product development and things along that line and saw things that weren't actually really reaching their potential. And so I had leaned a lot into the marketing side of it, like how in the world do we take these great ideas? And by the way, there are zillions of great ideas, right? And you came alongside at times like that, and we would say, we have this terrific way that we can make things better. And yet we needed to have marketing along with us.
I'm just going to keep interrupting you, and we'll go back and forth.
We're good.
But one of the things that you just said about you would see things not reaching their potential. And you are one of the most positive people I've ever met. There are some people that see things not reaching their potential and see a lot of negativity, missed opportunity. But you're somebody that's like, oh, this thing could be so great, right? There's this positivity thread that is always there.
It's funny because at one point we had pitched a product, and it's a little bit offline, but we had pitched a product to the sales team, the commercial team. And a very senior individual on the team was just upset about something else, very drugged down about it. And so he used it as a way to co-opt that meeting. And here was this great potential product that didn't reach it because everybody looked to the senior guy, the guy with gray hair, and said, well, if Bill doesn't think so, then what in the world? And I've learned that there are a group of people who don't like change at all. There's a whole group who don't want it. But if you're the one who likes to lead it, you just have to keep leaning into it and bring a lot of people along with you. And marketing is the key to helping bring people along with you. That's where the possibilities are out there. It's up to us to make sure that they get exploded and the energy comes behind them.
There was a I think it was a Harvard article that I read years ago, and I have always associated working alongside you, us in an agency capacity and you as the client. I always think of you in this article, but there was an article on the difference between big I innovations and little I innovations, right? Where there's all this little incrementalism versus, no, this thing has huge potential. And I think you have an opportunity in marketing, if you think about positioning, right? This is not just promotion, right? Here, we're going to start with the P's now. It's not about promotion, right? It's about place and positioning of these products. And you always had that filter.
Sometimes you are working on something that's much smaller, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Those things still have to happen. But as the head of either the product development, the marketing, the innovation side of the engine, you have to keep pushing yourself to be big and not get drugged down by, somebody who says, well, what if? Well, there's going to be a million what ifs. And when you stay true to it, you acknowledge it, you say, gosh, I hear what you're saying, and as we get to that point, we'll deal with it. But in the meantime, you have to keep pushing yourself to bring people along with you, because that full 60, 70% of people in the middle who are willing to make change, if you help them, they'll come with you.
I know we didn't say we'd do this, but could you talk for a second about the innovation, even if it's just within energy? I don't think a lot of people know Southwire Company because it's a privately held, you've talked before about if we were a Fortune company. Can you just give a sense of what your responsibilities were there?
I had the pleasure to work for one of the larger privately held companies in the country, and definitely here in Georgia. Privately held also means that you aren't out publicly discussed all the time, but we worked in the transmission, distribution, and electrification side. So very technical. So my technical part helped me there. And so basically all of the power that we're using today is delivered on a Southwire product and had huge market share and wonderful things. To drive innovation there means you better be ready when wind energy starts to come onto the market. These are market disruptors. Up until then, we didn't have wind energy. Better be ready for solar. You better be ready for all that. And often in businesses like that, where things are slow and change is not fast.
Mature market. Yeah.
People get worried about change, and you just have to help them be comfortable with it, including people around the executive team, because I ultimately had an executive role. So helping your key leaders, your CFO, your CIO, and the balance of the team, your heads of operation, be comfortable with change.
One of the things I've always loved about working with companies like Southwire alongside, we work with technology innovation companies. They're especially mature market infrastructure technology, companies. They're just working on a different timeline, right? You still need all that innovation.
You have to have it.
It's a different time
continuum. The deployment timeline, the time from innovation to cash generation can be longer versus if you're bringing out the new version of the iPhone, you obviously are working in a much shorter timeline.
Yes, 4 seconds.
Exactly.
Okay, so before we get down into Wonkville on marketing and the excitement of a large global organization, let's talk craziness.
Yes.
So it's the Marketing Madhouse. And,
oh, my Lord.
We have had long, storied careers, and I want you to tell me about some craziness that you experienced in your career as a marketer.
Well, you actually share one of those crazy events with me. I was a couple of years into my Southwire career, and we were undertaking a large an entire redo of our website, and that's back when that was like, moving Mount Everest. It was maybe easier to move Mount Everest.
It's no easier now. No, it's still moving Mount Everest.
Well, we were moving Everest through our website, and so we had this meeting start at 9 o'clock, I remember, and you and I were going to catch up at a meeting at 3, and things had gone left, meaning left nav, left. Because that was when you had a left nav. And we spent pretty much the entire time from 9 until 1:30 or so talking about what in the world the left nav was going to work like. And I pretty much had lost my marbles because it had been co-opted by
Well, wasn't it? It was very much like a pole position exercise, right? Like our revenue is number one, so we
should be number one.
And then we're
another one is,
revenue.
no, it's really meant for this. And no, we're the bigger guy. No, that product line is bigger. And at about 1:30, I had a flip and said, none of this is related to the customer. None of it. Like, the customer's the one who comes to the site, so we got to help them point in. And that got really quiet.
Crazy idea.
So I show up in your
priorities,
Carol. Yeah. I mean, what are you thinking? Marketing Madhouse, be mad, talk about the customer. So I showed up at your meeting, actually quite mad, so maybe that was the problem. And I came in, and you guys looked at me, and everybody was looking at me, and it was a meeting I was very excited to be attending. And I obviously didn't bring that energy in the room, and I said...
you flipped the table.
Did I? I probably did. And I said, my gosh, I just lost 5 years of my life in a left nav meeting. And everybody laughed, and I thought it was quite funny, and it actually was. And 2 days later, a T-shirt shows up. Actually, hang on. It's the T-shirt I have on today. You guys sent it to me.
We'll post a picture of it.
You guys sent it to me. It says, I lost 5 years of my life in a left nav meeting. So, yes, you can lose 5 years of your life being in the Marketing Madhouse.
You really can. And I have, and this has nothing to do with marketing, but it's mad. And so I want to share it. It has to do with Carol. So
we were marketing together.
We have a lot of stories, and we've done a lot of crazy things and been crazy places. And In the early days of our company, when we were working together, we had a lot of trips, and I feel like I was traveling all the time. I was going to the West Coast and here, all over. And so we had to go to Portland, and I think I was coming from somewhere and going to Portland, but it was all harried. And I remember we stayed at some really nice place in downtown Portland, and the Occupy protesters were there. So we were kind of, remember that? We were sort of trapped in the hotel.
We couldn't go out.
And so we couldn't go out. Anyway, we came in, and our meeting was 9 a.m., first thing in the morning. And I unpacked my bag, and I got up, and I started to get ready, and I realized I didn't have any shoes. So I had no shoes and my nice outfit. And this was a time, these days people would just wear the damn sneakers, right?
Yes, exactly.
You did not wear sneakers. And so I had to call Carol. And what size shoes do you wear?
I wear 7.5.
Okay, 7.5. Okay, I felt like they were bigger. Anyway, so I had to wear Carol's shoes to the meeting because I was in Portland with no shoes.
You were kind of flopping in.
Yeah,
so,
I did flop
we
a little
looked
bit.
a little mad. But anyway, we got it done.
That's right. Whatever it takes. You've always been very willing to share. So we are going to be back in a few minutes with Carol Godfrey, and I think this is going to be really exciting because you have a big story, and your life past corporate marketing has, turned a lot of corners. We talked about getting curves thrown at you. You have an amazing story, you and Gary, your husband. And so we're going to talk about both corporate marketing and sort of living up to your passions. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm so ready. Let's hit it.
Perfect. We'll be right back.
A lifetime of hard work, children laughing in the kitchen, family photos on a restaurant wall, a legacy that lives on. It all comes from the power of a conversation, like the one Tommy Hall had with First Horizon Bank about taking over his father's Charleston-based restaurant business. Now the table is set for a whole new generation. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Tommy. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
And we're back with the Marketing Madhouse and our guest, Carol Godfrey. And we're going to talk a little bit more about corporate marketing because that's really, I think it's where you spent the bulk of your career.
Yes,
we already talked about the strangeness of going from engineering to marketing, which is not strange because, as you said, it's about innovation and change and influence, which you use. But talk a little bit about marketing. How did you start your marketing career? What is it to be a corporate marketer?
So, you were talking about the P's on that side of such. Marketing on the corporate side is really about advancing initiatives. Mm-hmm. So choosing those key priorities that are out there, maybe that's one of the big P's that we're talking about, priorities. And then helping them advance and really escalating and using the passion of the organization to get it done. Mm-hmm. So, when I think about marketing on our side, when we were in the very much B2B marketing arena, and so there it was about activating customers and bringing them into finding the real problem that was needed to be solved, and then providing them with the good solution, which is there. But you have to touch them. And sometimes, we were marketing to engineers, and so you got to speak engineer to engineer. But you also have to help them make change. And so marketing in a corporate world is often about helping people get comfortable with change. And we did a pretty fair amount of that in our thing. My marketing expertise that I really liked was helping the organization through those changes. But what you find is with marketing, and I found this, maybe others have found it too, very other traditional executive roles around the room, your CIO or maybe your CEO, even your chief financial officer, your CFO. People don't often try to take over their area of expertise and speak into it. So, it's not like you're going to, as the head of marketing, I'm not going to be the one who's going to tell the CFO, the head of finance and operations.
I don't agree with your assessment of the financial
Or I'm going to try to
position.
act like I'm a financial expert. I'm not the financial expert in the room, but people often seem to think that they're the marketing expert in the room. And my expertise came through on-the-job learning and actually engaging with other smart folks like yourself. But we would find that, and often somebody like even our CEO would often have an idea. He had one time we had a product line, and he really came up with this great idea of how we were going to market it, and it really ran completely in the opposite direction of what the product actually did. And so as the head marketer in the room, you have to stand up for that.
Yep.
And you have to stand up for what is true to the product, what is true to the innovation, what's true to the brand.
Yep.
And it's often not what's true to the CEO's thinking about how that product should be marketed with this great picture of this thing.
You bring up a good point that I think is something that we struggle with. You know, as an agency, often we are looking from the outside in, right? So we can see more clearly some of these misalignments, right? Sometimes there's agenda, right? And you can clearly, somebody wants their fingerprint on something, or somebody wants something to go this way. Somebody likes a headline, right? You know, somebody wants to be creative and put their advertising hat on and you know, craft a campaign. But it is hard to be the one to say, I don't believe the customer will respond to that, and you aren't the target audience.
And that takes some finesse at different times. But if you don't speak it into existence, and you've seen it happen, Moira, if you don't speak it into existence, you are really putting your product line at risk. You're putting your financial model at risk and such, because you know that this is an agenda outside of what the customer sees, or what outside of what the product is meant to do. So it takes a little bit of guts to do it, but you got to do it, because if you don't, what happens is you've opened up a void, and you said, my expertise as a marketer is now less and diminished. You would never do that to your head of operations. You'd never tell your head of operations, hey, I got to, you know what, I was just thinking, I got a better idea. We should get rid of that extruder, and we should just put in a bunch of Play-Doh machines that squish stuff out. I mean, you would never do that.
Right.
But it happens to marketers, and you need to be aware of it and develop your expertise around standing true for the core principles of marketing.
Exactly. You know, something I find too, because change isn't a thing that, okay, we've changed, right? Like all of this stuff is a process, right? Repositioning, becoming something. And so I think there are places that people have confidence or courage to do certain things. And then the closer you get to launch, or closer you get to whatever, it gets harder and harder. And I definitely feel that when we have campaigns, and I had an experience like this where someone really wanted to be bold and different, and we came in with concepts to reposition them, and all of the executives, when they were faced with it, got really uncomfortable.
Yes.
And so we kind of took it off and said, you know, maybe you're just not ready. And they all actually, this was one of the few times in my career, they said, you know what, you're right. We said we wanted to be different. Get it back out. Put that safe stuff away, and they became that.
That reminds me, and the story is a little more operational than marketing related, but we used to do things when we would come in and change up an entire way that a product line flowed down a factory floor. We were in manufacturing. I love manufacturing. And we would have these big Kaizen events. I called them Kaizen events at the time. And we used to have the principles, you know, everybody could speak their piece. Everybody could, you know, be involved. And the one that I added later on is the Thursday effect. And here's the Thursday effect. These events used to run Monday through Friday. And on Thursday morning, we would lock down what we were going to present to the leadership team on Friday. And people would get scared. Panic would ensue on Thursday morning. And people would say things like, we never should have done this. We never should. Oh, my gosh. Because they would get scared. And listen, change is scary. It's okay. So we actually had a thing which said, on Wednesday night, you know, look, you can't show up on Thursday and sabotage things. And we'd be well aware of it, to give people the feeling that change is going to be big, but you can't wait until the end and then voice your opinion, because it sabotages the whole team. But so when we used to have that Thursday effect, it was one of the things. No Thursday effect. We're not going to do it to each other on Thursday. Monday through Wednesday, you can voice all you want, but Thursday you got to be on board. And maybe that, for a marketer, is something to remember in the back of your mind. When the big change is finally going to happen and people have to sign up, you have to give them the warning that we're not going to get to the end and then not have voiced things that we need to voice.
Right. Yeah. No. Totally. And you know, I think. You know, we're talking about the P's, and passion is something we're going to talk about as it relates to your life later. But passion is equally important, right? In these places, it's not all this mechanical decision making that's happening.
Very rarely is it, especially when it's big, when the change is big. If it's small, if we're talking about blue or green, we're probably not going to get to a Thursday effect.
Yep.
But if you are talking about launching an entire product line into a new space and spending, in cases that we used to run, you'd be talking about asking the board of directors for, $60 million in a particular product line. That presentation has to go well, and you can't get right to the end of it and then say, "Oh golly, I really don't feel real good about that."
Yeah,
you got to be a little bold there. You got to have your own passion in it. Along the way, though, you have to bring it along the way. You can't wait till the end.
That's where the big boy pants. There's that pant. You got to put your big boy pants on for that decision.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit more about marketing, and something that I think is interesting. I have, as we're talking, I'm making little notes, and I wrote down, let's figure this out together, right? Because I feel like a lot of the experience that we had working alongside you and teams of engineers really was, and guess what? Spoiler alert, this is what we're all doing every day. We're figuring it out together, right?
True.
These are new mediums. They're new offerings to market. The markets are changing. You're diversifying, which means there is not a playbook that is going to tell you exactly how to do it. It's not black and white. Can you talk a little bit about that, about just the idea of figuring it out together in corporate marketing?
Gosh, so sometimes you're bringing in people and they are uncomfortable with the fact that we're going to talk about marketing and in the arena, that marketing is going to be at the table. But you really need to be. Your product innovation team is usually right there. Sometimes when it's very, very new, Moira, one of the things we found is if it's very new, we would bring in a third party, an external party, to sit alongside of us through the entire process. So that, and the third party would be, a vendor of some sort, somebody, a research firm, a marketing, an external marketing firm such as yours, because that gives people the confidence that our newness, while new to us, might not be new to, say,
somebody else.
The Moto team. They actually have had a client who did this, and look, we got to the other side, and everybody was very successful. So we would bring along a third-party firm in those cases to help us.
Right. Sometimes it's a safety blanket or another opinion,
and it's an opinion that can get voiced. And we also used to joke about the 100-mile rule. If they're from more than 100 miles away, they're obviously smarter. I don't think that's really dumb, but it's dumb. We used to joke, just make sure they're not in there.
But there's a lot of that happens.
It does for sure.
Okay, so we're going to take a complete left turn, which is what happened to you. And so sometimes you're cruising along, you were an engineer, you sold lots of stuff, you did all this amazing marketing stuff, and you were on top of the world, and things happen and you get interesting phone calls and you go to interesting meetings. So what happened that changed your journey?
Gosh. So I had accepted a position at Southwire to run something totally new, totally outside of product innovation, development, marketing in a November. And it was an area of the company that we were struggling with. So I'm rocking along, and my husband, whose name is Gary, you'll get to know him a little bit over the next couple minutes. Gary had been having some trouble doing a few things. He was a basketball player in college, and he couldn't make a free throw when he was goofing around playing, just pick up sports. Now, he will tell you that he never really made many free throws anyway because he wasn't that good free throw shooter, but he couldn't get it to the basket. And he developed some weakness and such. Couldn't figure out what it was, thought it was this, that, and the other. So those things happened. And then things got a little weirder. And, you go to Google University, Dr. Google.
Yes,
you
Dr.
become a
Google.
Dr.
What
Google.
What
happens when you have this, and this? So we were kind of expecting something, and we felt like we knew what it was. But we headed off to Emory. A dear friend of ours got us in to see the head neurologist for the ALS clinic. And I'll explain what ALS is in a second, but his name is Dr. Jonathan Glass. We had a meeting with Dr. Glass, and he said, Gary, I'd love to tell you you have something else, but you have ALS. And ALS is Lou Gehrig's disease. That was January 8th of, I guess it's been 4 years ago. And when Glass said those words, it was a big gut punch because we'd been to Google, right? We knew what this meant.
You've been to Google.
And we were like, oh, goodness. So ALS, you might remember ALS as a marketer from the Ice Bucket Challenge. Remember when we all dumped ice over our heads? We screamed and yelled and made a donation to the ALS Association. That's what that was. You might also think of it as Lou Gehrig's disease. Lou Gehrig had this particular disease. It is a neurodegenerative disease, similar in scope to like Parkinson's, or you've also got, we have Huntington's disease in that arena. And then you have Alzheimer's is also a neurodegenerative disease. So basically for my sweet husband, his mind is completely intact.
Your sweet 6'8",
6'8", basketball playing is big old dude. The big guy is his nickname. So the big guy gets told, guess what? You have ALS and you will lose control of your muscles. That's what ALS does. It no longer allows the motor neurons to communicate with the brain. So your muscles don't move anymore. So Gary lost control of his arms, legs, hands, speech, breathing. He now has a ventilator and breathes through a ventilator. Mine's still intact, sharp as ever. So that's what ALS is. And we knew that we would be on a completely different journey than worrying about products or product line development. So I worked for a little while longer, then took a sabbatical for a little bit from work. Took a little time off to see if I could make it back, but couldn't. And so now I am what I jokingly call a passion-based marketer, but I also spend a good amount of time with my husband helping him and really helping him make ALS something that's known. ALS is not rare. It's just not common, so people don't know about it. A typical ALS patient might live 3 to 5 years only. Gary's lived much longer and will probably live longer, which is great. But they also lose their voice. And so can you imagine being someone like me and figuring out that your husband is going to lose his voice, not because he's going to lose his voice totally, but because to me, voice is so important, our ability to make changes based on that. So my role has been to help him and to help all of those in the ALS world really accelerate.
Keep their voice, right?
Keep their voice and be their voice. So how do I be their voice?
Again, getting really personal. I remember the phone call. I remember where I was sitting when you called me.
Gut punch.
To tell me. And it was the conference room of our former office. And I remember you called and you said a couple of words and you started crying.
For sure.
And probably only time in my whole life I've heard you cry. I was like, oh my God, what is happening?
Gut
right?
punch.
Right?
Gut punch.
Yeah. And the thing I want to say about that is not the crying, because we're going to sit here and cry, but you are the most positive person I know, and you took the gut punch and pretty immediately turned this into one of our other pieces is going to be power, right? Empowerment. Like, how do I take this and we are going to turn this thing into something really powerful and positive?
For sure. Yeah. I guess I didn't realize that punch was going to be one of the
keys.
punch.
Yeah, well, you have to be able to take a punch.
So you take it. So when Gary got diagnosed with ALS, I mean, we really knew at that point, my husband was a management consultant too, we had two choices. One was we could turn this into something that we wanted to and wanted to accelerate, or we could go home, which is totally great, and we could just totally internalize things, which would be fine, and many people do, and I'm totally comfortable with that. The Godfreys are going to probably lean toward getting something done.
Yeah.
So Gary really took it, and we said, let's do what we now call make today your best day. Okay, and that's really become the tagline and the way in which we move through our lives, and that we also shine light on people who are living with ALS. And the key is living with ALS. We live every day in a beautiful way with ALS. It is not easy. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to candy coat it. But when you choose to make today your best day, and that carries over to anyone, like you are making today your best day. I am having a best day because I get to be here with you recording this podcast. It allows you also to schlep off or schlep off a whole bunch of other people's silliness that comes at you
don't need.
that you're like, I really don't want to own their stuff. So if I'm choosing, and you move into the day very intentionally with that same sort of
It is a brand.
It's our personal brand.
One thing that I loved about it, the little girl that lived down the street, or next door neighbor, had done had colored this beautiful Rainbow Lake sunrise, and Gary had the tagline, and Kirk Wells on my team, who's worked with you and known you for a long time, made these branded things, and you said, no, this is our brand now.
This is our brand, and this is who we are, and this is how we'll live it. And you guys, sweetly enough, helped me turn her artwork into what is the brand image that we use now, and also our website. We actually have one, which you guys did for us, which thank you for that. But when you take these passions that you have, they're already in you, right? So you can't take Carol Godfrey and just set her aside when you're faced with something that changes your life and you move in a 180-degree different direction. Well, I guess you can. I couldn't.
No.
Okay? Very hard to take, reprogram yourself into something else. So how do I be my same sense of self? How can I still stay inside of me, even when I'm no longer doing the corporate marketing side of things? But how am I doing that? And how am I making me still feel fulfilled and still able to do that? So we have poured a lot of our time and our own passion into making sure that we accelerate people who are already in the ALS space. Okay, so we've come alongside.
So what are
it's the
some
same
of
thing
what
I would
are some
do.
of those groups or things?
Groups and things. We come alongside folks who are already having success in it. So there was a group here in Atlanta who was raising money actually, and we're able to do that through a group called the Night of Hope. So Night of Hope raises money for the ALS clinic here in Atlanta. So we came alongside them, brought in our own passions, our own people, and our own pocketbooks to make to have an impact with the Night of Hope. And we've met through terrific people through that, involved actually with Lou Gehrig Day and through the Braves and doing things like that. Sporting is great. Been involved through Auburn marketing, through a lot of what goes on with Auburn basketball. My husband played basketball at Auburn. And so been involved with them, making sure that they're doing that, the ALS Association. And then we stood up one on our own. Gary saw the great opportunity, and I give my husband great credit for having good instinct and good insights, especially when it deals with sports. So we've come together during rivalry week in college football. There is nothing better than awesome college rivalry. Rivalry week is terrific time. Well, we are great Auburn fans and have been for a long time. Obviously, both of us went to school there, but our sweet friend Carrie Good is an beloved Alabama football player. So we formed the Carrie and Gary Challenge to defeat ALS. And so during that week, it's the couple weeks right before the Iron Bowl, during that time, right around Thanksgiving, we energized those two fan bases and the entire state of Alabama to be talking about ALS. So the governor brought out the proclamation that this was ALS Awareness Week, and we were on the TV and doing that to see what we could raise fund-wise to help people in the state of Alabama who are facing ALS. And so the very first year was last year. Great fun, raised close to $90,000 by getting these two fan bases to compete against each other. Now, Gary will tell you that he kicked Carrie's butt. He loves to joke about that. Carrie will tell you he won't ever lose again, so the Alabama fans will win this year, and we will undertake that again this year.
Now, see, we're in marketing, so we know it's bad branding, but it would be great if whoever won could put their name at the front. So it could be Gary and Carrie Challenge if he wins,
Yes, exactly. And you and your team are helping us with this year. And we're going to bring on some new folks. But to take the passion that you have in your own life and to understand what, moving your priorities and using your priorities for good, my goodness, it's been lovely. So the Carrie and Gary Challenge is a fun one, and one that we'll have a good time with this week. I mean, this year as we roll into Rivalry Week.
All right, well, we wrap up this segment. One quick thing, because we're talking about Lou Gehrig's, and we're talking about basketball, and we're talking about football, we're talking about ALS. Is this an athlete's condition, right? Because I think everybody over-indexes on athletes.
Yes, they do. They push it a little bit too much to think that it is. The reason is because of the athletes. Okay, athletes are public figures, them. But what you don't know about is somebody like, well, now you know about her, but she's a sports writer. Her name's Sarah Lang. She's 29 years old. Okay, there's lots of people. The guy who lives down the street from us in Auburn, Alabama, literally 50 houses down from where we have our place in Auburn, he's 35. He's had it for several years. He has an 8-year-old little girl. So while you see it as athletes, it's actually
it's more about the visibility
of the athletes. It actually affects veterans twice as much as it does non-vets. So we don't know all the science behind it, but don't think of it as an athlete's disease. You got to think of it as, everybody from Stephen Hawking to my sweet friend who lives down the street from us, Lamar Woody.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to be right back with Carol Godfrey on the Marketing Madhouse.
This morning in North Carolina, wheels are spinning. Determination is winning. A passion is now a thriving business, and it shows no signs of slowing down. How? The power of a conversation, like the one Clint Spiegel had with First Horizon Bank about starting a bike wheel manufacturing facility in Asheville. Now it's not just talk, it's rubber meets road. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Clint. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
We're back for the last segment of the Marketing Madhouse with our guest, Carol Godfrey, corporate marketer and passion marketer and great person in general. So to wrap up, when, you've just been through so many, unbelievable situations again, and just facing all of them with, again, oh my God, we're going to go into the piece with poise, right? So beyond passion, right? You really are a picture of positivity. You've got composure, and you don't lose sight of what's important. So, talk a little bit about, how do you do that? How do you stay balanced, and how do you stay positive and focus on what matters?
Life has lots of transitions in it. I mean, you're a parent, right? When you had the two little guys, guys and girls, when you have two little ones, when you had little ones at home, my gosh, wasn't that a huge transition?
Yes.
Huge transition. So when you get those transitions, for me, it takes a little bit. You gotta recenter a bit. You got to deal with the gut punch, or in your case, having the all those 4 little eyeballs staring at you. You gotta take a little time.
That's the P for the babies. The
there
poop.
we go.
Yeah.
You got that for sure. So when you do that, I have found I've been successful when I've taken a little time to just let it absorb a little bit, but then you got to roll back into it. And I've usually found that when I can bring people in to it with me and bring people along and bring things that I know along with me, gosh, it is actually joyous. And you would say, are you kidding, Carol? Your husband has ALS. By the way,
I do frequently think that when I get on the phone with you. I'm like, but you sound happier than anybody I talked to today.
You wouldn't wish ALS on your worst enemy in the world. I mean, I'm sure that, well, I don't want to pick politics, so I'm not going to say that, but, we wouldn't wish that on the worst ruler and dictator in the world.
Yep.
You wouldn't wish him ALS. So how do you roll through that? You do it. I've found I've been successful. And you would do this, by the way, if things were stinking at work. Let's say you're the head of marketing and you've just figured out that you've had a data breach and all of a sudden your company's going to be in a world of hurt and this great brand that you love is going to be hurt. Hurt. What are you going to do about it? You're going to bring some people along with you. We have brought along we've gone out and brought in our Auburn engineering team. We went down, Gary had this great idea. You got to love the guy. He's got ideas. He says, what if I got the Auburn engineers to do their senior design project in mechanical engineering, and I got them to build me a bicycle. And I'm like, oh, well, Gary was a bicyclist before he got ALS. And so we went down and pitched the dean of engineering, and Chris said, yeah, let's do it. Let's make senior design for some engineers, design Gary Godfrey a bike to ride in Bo Bikes, Bama, which is Bo Jackson's big event down there. And he'll ride 20 miles on in this bike, and that'll be great. Now, Gary's practically paralyzed. I mean, he's paralyzed. He's not really, but that's what it equates to. And so they built him a bike. an inverted bicycle, senior design, great engineers, and to let those young people come along literally on this ride with us and get engaged with somebody. They will be better engineers, they will be better humans, and we will be better because we've been with them. So they built him a bike. They've actually built 2, version 1 and version 2.0. Version 2.0 rode this year. Got Gary up to 30 miles an hour, got to have the wind in his face. Now that's fun. So bring people along with you.
There's your problem solving, right?
They had them, and they're so cute, but they will be better people because they were involved in that. So we'll do that. And we brought along too, the Carol and Gary deal doesn't work unless we have caregivers who are with us. We have caregivers. I am lucky enough. We were successful enough in our career, and I can afford to have caregivers with me. Many people are not. So ALS can be crippling financially to families. We didn't talk about that, but it costs on average $250,000 out of pocket
a year
for a family to deal with ALS. This is crushing. That's why we do the Carry Gary Challenge. But these things are crushing. And Gary and I are lucky. And I say this every day. I'm the luckiest person. Lou Gehrig said he was the luckiest man alive on the planet. I am. So Lou isn't here anymore, but Carol is. I'm lucky because I have that. So other people, we have to work for them to be able to do that. So, we'll work in that. We have great caregivers. They're amazing. Again, bring them in, but you got to look for great people like you do in your business. You hire great people and you bring them along with you, and you bring them along on your journey. So that's how we've been able to do that, is bring these people into our lives and help us on our journey. And they are the better, and we are the better with them in it.
100%. Well, I think we've spoilered a little my last question. But no, this is good. This is perfect. So the last question we always talk about is, what's the example of a company or an organization that kind of checks all the boxes? And by all the boxes, I mean great brand in market, great with their teams internally, great as a corporate citizen, right? Community builder. And so when we were prepping for this, you talked a lot about, well, it's not really a corporation for me. It's Auburn. So talk about Auburn, and why is Auburn all that?
I would say, I was thinking about when you asked me, what do I think are some great companies who really represent that? And in this case, I'm going to tell you, I think it's an institution. And obviously the institution of Auburn, and in a time in which in our country institutions are under attack, and they are being attacked for what they are, that Auburn team and the people who've led it for years have done so, and they actually have their own brand statement. It's actually quite longer, though. They call it the Creed, the Auburn Creed. And I shared that with you, Moira, when we were prepping here. And I said, golly, when I think about it, maybe this is what it's like to serve people, to serve a community, and to serve a brand at a really high level. And so I think the Creed helps center what we've done. It was established in the 40s, I think, written in the 40s, and hasn't been edited since. But it helps us anchor. It helps them, or the institution, helps those of us who support the institution to know who we are.
Okay, so I'm going to speed read it because I think it anchors us to all this. So this is the Auburn Creed for many people that do not know that they have a creed. I believe that this is a practical world and that I can count only on what I earn. Therefore, I believe in hard work. I believe in education, which gives me the knowledge to work wisely and trains my mind and my hands to work skillfully. I believe in honesty and truthfulness, without which I cannot win the respect and confidence of my fellow men. I believe in a sound mind, in a sound body, and a spirit that is not afraid, and in clean sports that develop these qualities. I believe in obedience to law because it protects the rights of all. I believe in the human touch, which cultivates sympathy with my fellow men and mutual helpfulness and brings happiness for all. I believe in my country because it is a land of freedom and because it is my home, and that I can best serve that country by doing justly, loving mercy, and walking humbly with my God. And because Auburn men and women believe in these things, I believe in Auburn and love it.
So from a brand perspective, boom, boom,
right?
Like from a marketer's perspective, boom. So when you talk about a spirit that's not afraid, as marketers, we have to be a spirit that's not afraid. We have to be the one who's not afraid in the room. Okay, the whole idea of the human touch. My gosh, that's what we do. We do the human touch every day. And, and to believe in those things, carry those things. There's plenty more in there, but I just thought those two from a marketing perspective are there. They're very much of what helps us as the Godfreys carry forward, but it's what your readers and your listeners for the podcast, I think, can help carry you forward in a way that's truly lovely. So today has been a joyous day for me, a best day. Gary and I say make today your best day. It's been a best day for me.
Well, that is wonderful. I don't think there's a better way to wrap that up. Thank you for sharing everything, this journey with me. Oh my gosh, I can't cry now.
Don't do it. It's joyous.
It is a great day. It is joyous. Thank you so much for being my guest today and a great friend. And we've been talking about a lot of craziness. So everybody knows there's a fine line between genius and insanity, and we are surely walking it. I'm Moira Vetter, and this is Marketing Madhouse.
A lifetime of hard work, children laughing in the kitchen, family photos on a restaurant wall, a legacy that lives on. It all comes from the power of a conversation, like the one Tommy Hall had with First Horizon Bank about taking over his father's Charleston-based restaurant business. Now the table is set for a whole new generation. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Tommy. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.